on this computer. All right, so I'm gonna pass it over to George to walk us through the demos. George, can you hear me?
Yes, sorry,
Okay.
my mic was muted.
You're good. It happens to me all the time.
All right, so yeah, who wants to get started? Volunteers,
We can go if you want.
go for it.
All right. Do you want to do all the talking, Nuria, and I'll do the screen control?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Alrighty. Can you see?
Yeah, trying to see through mobile.
Just let me know if you want me to take over, Nuria.
Maybe you should take over the GitHub talking through the code, because it's really hard for me to see line by line.
Okay. Yeah. Totally. Okay. So on GitHub, so our issue this week was to create a delete function so that the user could remove an item from their list that they no longer wanted. And so we read through more Firebase Firestore docs, which low-key is one of my favorite things to do, read through documentation I'm learning. And so we started out with like the delete function, and then we found the delete doc method, which was a little bit more all-inclusive, all-encompassing. So we imported that, and we set up our delete item function on Firebase, which just basically needs the list ID and then the item ID. And so in our list item, the issue had specifically mentioned about not trying to build your own dialog box because of accessibility issues, which makes sense. So we just stuck with the like built-in dialog box of window confirm, and we just edited the like confirmed message. And so then we were able to just call our delete item function from there. So I'll open up the smart shopping list here. Nuria, can you see that on your phone?
Yes, thank you, Caitlin. Yes, this is our smart shopping list. As you can see, the list items, and next to each item there is a delete button. And when you click, the window confirmation should pop up, which is like, are you sure you want to delete the particular item, for example, pencil? If you click cancel, nothing should happen. Like, yeah, you don't want to delete, but if you click back again to delete, okay, you sure, and deletes, and here the updated list. That's our issue was for this week.
One of the interesting things that we learned in the docs is that with this route, when you delete all of the items, if I were to hit delete on all of the items, it would also delete the collection. It would delete the list too. Something interesting.
Yes.
Very cool. Does anyone have any follow-up questions for that?
I really liked how you talked us through that. That was really clear, and like understanding that the you know, creating dialog boxes could be an accessibility issue. Like that's really good to note. Again, like we've been talking about this all along, but thinking about it from the start as you're creating a feature saves you a lot of headache down the road of trying to fix accessibility issues. So yeah, that's awesome.
I was in a really interesting accessibility workshop a long time ago. This was like, I don't know, a year ago. And the first activity they had us do was design a vending machine from the perspective of someone who is like blind or had sight issues. And then they basically use that analogy to be like, that is how like we should be designing web spaces is starting with the people who are in need of accessibility, like access points, and then building for people who don't need those access points per se. What's necessary for some is good for all.
That's a really interesting activity. I like that analogy a lot.
Yeah, that is really cool, actually. Never thought about something like that. Cool. Anyone else? No? All right. Great job, y'all. Cool. Well, the next group, y'all want to go?
Okay, let me share my screen. Oh, good.
Yep, we
Okay.
can see you.
So for our issue, we needed to sort the list by different edge cases, and so we imported get days between dates, which comes from the dates util. The biggest thing was that last week's issue wasn't done yet, so we had to make get days between dates function that wasn't the same as Caitlin and Mira's from last week. So I ended up just using the one that we came up with. Let me go down here. Where is it? Here. I ended up just going with the one we did and then added, like made it work with what they made. So we set current date here. We pass in previous purchase and future purchase. If they're both present, then it runs this equation where it subtracts the two. And then here, this was the best way I could think of implementing the overdue, because I had math.abs, but we needed a negative date for overdue. So this previous purchase is less than current purchase. It just would do this if that's true, and it would do, it kind of flips them. Then going back, I just refactored this because one of the issues I was finding was that there's, if somebody unclicks the box, it does the same thing again. So just a little bit cleaner to add like a if is checked, then don't do any of this stuff, else do all of this stuff. Yeah, and then all of this was from last week that I kind of just made work with what we made. And then here for the compare purchase urgency, we're passing in items. We create an empty array. We're looping through the items. If the date that last purchase is true, then we're gonna find the difference between these two dates. If not, then we're going to do date created in the next purchase date. And then if it's greater than or equal to 60, it gets marked as inactive and gets the inactive tag. Else, we're going to pass in date.nextPurchase, which would get subtracted from the current date, and it would get set as false for inactive because it would be less than 60 days. And then you get an item.days key value pair. It goes through the switch function, which depending on the number of days, which is coming from date till next purchase, which is coming from this here, this current the current date minus the next purchase date. Depending on the number of days, it will get a different tag. overdue, soon, kind of soon, not soon. By default, it would just be inactive. If item is checked, the urgency is purchased. And then we sort through all of the items. First, it checks if it's checked, and we'll sort those and put those at the bottom of the list. Then it will go by, is it active or inactive, which is just true, false, and that will get sent above the purchase, but still at the bottom of the list. Then it goes by days. And then this a.name local compare b.name is just to sort alphabetically. And then we push those items into this empty array that we made at the beginning, and we return that array. And then in the list item here, we're passing in yeah, this was also another conflict that I had this merge, like fix, because of the delete, and can't remember, there's something else I think, but so I just kind of clean this up a bit for the looks. And then in the list file, we call the compare purchase urgency with data and set that to sorted data. So this is just passing in all the items. And then instead of sorting through looping through the data, we're gonna go and filter like the sorted data that has all the new key value pairs that we added in urgency tag. We pass the urgency tag through as a prop into the list item, which would then be displayed where? Like just here in the list item.
Very nice. Great job, y'all.
Here you can see the items are sorted. So by its items are sorted by like if it is inactive, and then it shows like then by the if the dates are the same, then it gets in alphabetical order. And if it is active, it shows here. So if we add a new item, and then if we want to like set whatever we how soon we went by, and so it just adds it and then it gives the since it's a duplicate, it's not anything. So if I add something and kind of zoom it shows here. So and it adds and based on the sorting conditions.
I had a little bit of trouble hearing Mira. Pat, I'm not sure if there was anything you wanted to add in for context. It looked like good, and it looked like what you were describing.
I mean, yeah, that's basically it.
There is nothing to show apart from the code because it's just sorting based on like whether the item is inactive, and then it sorts by the date from the purchase date. If it has the same date, it sorts alphabetically.
Nice. Very cool. Was there any questions or comments from anybody before we moved on?
I was just going to say, well done with all of the first handling merge conflicts is always a giant nightmare. So like, good job doing that. And also like refactoring to, clean things up when you're working with a lot of people, things can get kind of unwieldy. So when you see opportunities to simplify things, it's really helpful for everyone on the team. Just better understand what's happening. And the code comments as well are helpful for that. So really nice job just using all of those communication skills and like making it really easy for the team to work with this code. Nice job.
Yeah, to all of that. Definitely develop that skill for trying to identify merge conflicts before they happen. So yeah, great job, y'all. Cool. Are there any other questions before we get into our retros? No? Cool. Yeah, I think Volho's gonna lead us into that. So go for it.
Yes, hi, good morning. So let me share the link to the board. So maybe let's take 6 minutes till 7:25. And I'll let you know when it's time. Thank you.
And I'm going to go ahead and pause the recording. So feel free to turn off your cameras or whatever if you like. All right, we're recording again.
All right, perfect. Can you see my screen well?
Yep, we can see it.
Okay, fantastic. So a few previous items. First of all is working to front load our weeks. Second one is finding resources to develop PR response skills. And also challenging ourselves to leave comments, questions, notes, any feedback, and just really looking through the code and making sure that we leave in a meaningful PR comments. And of course, leaving more thoughtful comments on PRs, which is essentially the same thing. I think many of them are probably gonna stay because it's a generally good practice. And let's go through some kudos. Whoever, like I don't see who left the comment, so whoever see their first comment, maybe you want to share?
I think if you click on it, it might be hard for people to remember which one. If you click on the title, it'll show you who left it.
Oh, okay, perfect. Caitlin, thank you.
Yeah, that's me. Yeah, the attention to detail, which ties into the PR comment issue of like the comments on the PRs are like bringing up really interesting edge cases, or they're bringing up like different like very small minute things that people are clearly taking time to like really dig into the like issue to have a look around and see what they can find. And that's really awesome. And then also on the flip side, like with Pat and Mira refactoring all of the like mess code from last week, like there's so much like minute attention to detail when you have to refactor code. So yeah, that's awesome to see.
Hi, this is me. I'm like so amazed how our team handles emergent conflict. It's amazing. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a separate skill.
Yeah, this was just me shouting out everybody for using all the communication tools that they have available to them. Slack, code comments, PRs, all that great stuff. So thank y'all.
All right, fantastic.
Oh, and yeah, shout out to everybody's flexibility as well.
Caitlin?
Yeah, I know everyone, a lot of people on this team have like lots of things going on outside of the Collab lab, but you all have been doing a really great job of still making time to prioritize, getting this work done, being really good team members, and like not dropping the ball when you have, a ton of other commitments. So I'm just really impressed with your commitment to this team.
Definitely. Next is mine comment, and it's essentially echoes what Caitlin said. I know it's hard to move forward when there are blockers. It could be discouraging, but I really admire how this team is able to make progress and get things done on time and despite everything that's going on. So thank you.
That's me. I'm just like echoing like thanks to everybody with the last week issue and helping us figuring out, and the team members and the mentors. So it's been great working with.
Yeah, and like again, amazing teamwork. If we face an issue, we have we develop amazing communication skills. If we need help, we just shout out, and whole team gets together and help if needed. For example, when the Firebase was down, thank you for mentors and team members to help us through it.
Yeah, just a round of applause for everybody for getting to the final like logical issue.
All right, fantastic. So let's move on to what went well.
Yeah, I think it's been said, but communication is really good.
One's me. Yeah, we also addressed this as well, but I think you all have been doing a really good job of taking to heart that previous action item of leaving thoughtful comments. We talked about how it's sometimes scary to review someone else's PR, but as Caitlin said, like they've been really helpful comments that I've been seeing on PRs, and it's really clear that you all are actually taking time to dig into the code, see what's happening, and leave really helpful feedback for each other. So well done.
This is also been like echoed before, but just the like general ambiance and vibe of everyone involved mentors and like collabs where like everyone has the same common goal, and it's nice when everyone has the same common goal because it makes communication and makes progress a lot easier when you know that you're working with someone who's trying to get to the same endpoint.
Yeah, this is just to kind of repeat Caitlin's thing. Is to I love seeing the engagement on PRs. It's awesome.
Yeah, just finish us off. The last comment is mine, and I think like many kudos and what went well are kind of similar in nature, so there could be a few repeats, but I think it's definitely worth mentioning again the planning and the consideration of all possible edge cases and the teamwork, you know, and just supporting each other and helping each other move forward. So really love that. All right, so let's move to what could be improved. We only have a few items. The first one is mine. Of course, we should try to push things early to discover issues, possible issues early. So that would allow other teammates to have more time to work on their task and not to be a blocker.
Yeah, my point is basically the same. Don't feel bad that this is a repeating issue that we're seeing. I think a lot of teams face this problem as well, that like when you have a deadline, so many of us are just going to like go up into the wire, and like that's just a reality. But the more like just continue working on that as a team, because it really will make your lives easier as much as you can front load your work. But don't feel bad. Like that's probably something that every team hears.
Yeah, definitely. Things are rarely gets on time. There's always something that comes up. All right, fantastic. I see no action items. Probably I would assume most of our previous action items kind of gonna take its place because things are essentially staying the same. You know, front loading the week, pushing things early, continuing amazing job with reviewing pull requests and leaving meaningful comments and suggestions. If there's anything else anyone wants to add, please feel free to do so. All right, I'll take it as a no. Well, thank you. I'll be posting the link to the retro in a Slack.
Cool. All right, that gives us a little bit of extra time, which is good. We're going to be talking about our issues this week. Pat kind of alluded to the fact that these next 2 weeks are going to be kind of different. The issues the issue that we're working on as opposed to the past 6 weeks. So this is our last sprint, and it's going to be focused on design, which will be a little bit of a change of pace for us. Let me pull up my screen here. And so we're going to be working on this same issue for both weeks of the sprint, which is a little bit different. And both teams are going to be working on the same issue as well. So let's start by reading through it. And then with any extra time that we have at the end, we can kind of start having some of these conversations that are alluded to in the issue. So if I could have, well, so the issue this week is, as a user, I want the app to look professional and welcoming. And we are going to have pairs assigned just so that you can work on, individual parts of this process, but you are going to have to be having more team-wide conversations for these next 2 weeks than you have been previously, because it's a lot of overlap and you're going to have to make some more independent decisions on your own about how you want to approach things. So having that conversation at the beginning of the sprint will be helpful to you all as we get started. So as a user, I want the app to look professional and welcoming. This summary here, can I get a volunteer to read through the summary for us?
Sure.
Thanks, Pat.
The last 2 weeks of the project will function a little differently than the rest. Your team will self-organize around a lightweight design process to come up with a polished look and feel for your app. This will require you to make decisions together as a whole team, then implement your vision. The process outlined here is our best suggestion for how to proceed, but you are free to take whatever approach you see fit. You'll notice this is the last issue on the board. That's because the expectation is for you to write the stories needed to complete the implementation of your design direction. As always, lean on your mentors for guidance if you are unsure how to proceed.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Pat. And then what we have here, the rest of this is kind of the suggested design process. Again, if you all have a different strategy that you want to use to approach it, have at it. But it can be a little bit daunting to just be like, design this app. And so that's why we've got some steps laid out for you to kind of give you an idea of what you might want to do. So the suggestion, there's some conversations that you might want to have as a team that we should have a little bit of time to start talking about here. So like, what's the tone you're going for, or the feeling, thinking of some words of what you want to convey with your app. And there's some examples here. You can create a mood board of like, what kind of look do you want it to have? Just to get on the same page of the vibe you're going for, basically. You're also going to need to decide on a couple of fundamental elements like typography, colors, and iconography, and there are some resources linked here that will be very helpful for that. You're going to decide whether you want to code your CSS from scratch or integrate a CSS framework. There are pros and cons to each, so you can kind of think through what works best for you as a team. And then if you're using a framework, you're going to have to pick one. So these are some considerations that you might want to think about as a team. Does anyone have any questions about kind of the big picture idea of this week's issue? Cool. Okay. Just to make sure everyone's aware, this week our pairs are going to be Nuria and Mira, and then Caitlin and Pat. But again, you're going to want to be also coordinating across pairs just to make sure you're all on the same page for this week. But those are that's who you'll be doing your pair programming with this week. If there aren't any questions, why don't we kind of get started with some of these design process questions just to get us a little bit ahead of the curve there, unless there's anything else that we needed to discuss during our weekly sync. I don't want to steal time if there was anything else we needed to discuss. Okay, if so, feel free to speak up, but otherwise let's get started with these questions here about the design process. So number one is what is the tone that you're going for and what feeling are you trying to convey? Come up with 3 to 5 words that best capture how you want users to perceive your app. And so some examples are fun, clean, ironic, businesslike, and then here's a link to some more words. I'm going to drop that in the chat and, oh, nice. Oh, Caitlin, nice. A cool random accessibility color generator. Looks awesome. Oop. Here's the link to that image. I'm going to open this so that we can link it on Slack as well later. Why don't, if everyone wants to kind of open that link and maybe start dropping in the chat some words that are like popping out to you, or you can say them out loud if you want as well, about what kinds of. Go ahead.
Can I throw a small wrench in the first step of this plan?
Yeah.
Okay, because I was kind of thinking about it like as we were going through the process of building this app, where I was thinking about like who the target audience for this app would be, like who are we marketing this towards, who would use this?
That's a great question.
Because I find that's usually how that's usually the angle that I take when I'm trying to build something. I'm like, who is actually going to use this? And one of the things that I came up with just from my own personal experience is that in schools, a lot of times there are food programs, and they're usually total chaos. And so I thought it would be kind of cool if we like created it with a target audience of like school administrators or teachers or whoever's running the food program in mind. And it can kind of extend to like beyond just schools. Like it can be like before and after school program, food programs, or like any sort of food program thing where you're like having to purchase a whole bunch of different ingredients and then build kind of like snack kits or breakfast kits or whatever you're doing. I don't know, just throwing that out there as an option.
I love that idea. Yeah, as George said, it's a fantastic strategy of just like focusing your attention on like having an audience is a really good place to start, of like that, then you can make sure that you're meeting the needs of that audience. So that's fantastic. I love the idea, but would love to hear from the other collabs about what y'all think, or if you want to build off of what Caitlin's saying, how are we feeling about that idea?
I think it's a great idea.
Anyone else?
I like that idea because then, as Arab denotes, like when you need was soon or kind of soon, so it's an appropriate thing so that we don't like they don't waste ingredients or waste like whatever they need to purchase or purchase more. So that's
Nice. Mira, your audio is cutting. I couldn't hear very clearly, at least. If you want to make sure you're dropping in the chat as well, if there's anything that you want to highlight from what you said. But yeah, it sounds like people are liking the idea, Caitlin. I saw some thumbs up from Nuria. And cool. Yeah, that's a fantastic starting point. I think that will help ground your conversations as you're thinking about it. Cool. Do we want to try and think of, like, with that target audience in mind, some helpful adjectives to describe like what the app would look like? I think that's a helpful starting point. I can open, and these are just some examples. You can go with whatever words you want, but just to kind of help. If you're already thinking about schools, that's helpful. Okay, thanks, Mira. Thanks for confirming. I just want to make sure we were all on the same page. Yeah, so looking at this list, maybe it's easier. You can drop in the chat or say out loud if there's any words from this list or others that you think would be helpful in targeting that audience of school programs.
Would this be, if we're doing like the school thing, would it be more for like administration, like teachers and stuff, or is it like kids as well, or parents?
Yeah, that's a good question. Caitlin, did you have any thoughts about like expanding off
I didn't know you wanted me to answer that question.
No, you're good. You're good.
When I had conceived of it, it had just been from my experience as a teacher in a school and as a volunteer at like a before school program. So like in those two scenarios, it's just like whoever's running the program that would have access to it. The kids and the families mostly just show up and just eat whatever's being served. But I'm open to, like, I'm good with whatever. I'm good with anything.
Yeah, I think in general, most volunteer programs are like public need programs tend to be very overrun and under-resourced, so it's a really good target audience because something like this can help them organize their, their needs and everything. So yeah, it sounds like the idea being put out there at least is like more like administrators or volunteers, but we can totally, feel free to jump in with other ideas.
Yeah, I agree. This target audience, I guess they're like busy people, schedule and everything. They have lots of going on in their lives. And maybe our application should be at least clean, like less busy, casual. So lots of target audience that can easily understand what to do with application, how to use it.
Love it. Yeah, it sounds like Caitlin also had similar minimal, clean, friendly, and Nuria said clean, like casual. I'm just putting these in the chat so I can copy them later. But yeah, it sounds like y'all are on a similar page of like minimal and friendly, but like usable is the main goal there, like making sure it's very easy to understand because these people are going to be busy and overloaded. So yeah, love it. This seems like a really good start for thinking through some of these topics. Maybe the next step is like kind of not a group video call activity, but like creating a mood board is another helpful thing just to get some like visualization going of like what does that mean to you. So the mood board link here, there's 2 suggestions, and I'll leave it to y'all to kind of figure out exactly how you want to do it. So Milanote is a tool that you can use to create a mood board. And then Canva also has some resources for the mood board. So maybe that can be like a first step for y'all in starting our week, is kind of getting some inspo images going just to, again, like help with thinking through fonts and colors. Iconography is going to be the next step. So my suggestion, y'all should make your own decisions, but my suggestion would be to start with these 2 things, starting to think independently and then regroup together to kind of talk through and prioritize and make some decisions before you jump into some of the other bigger decisions and then some of the pair programming. And then another just point of clarification, again, we're working on this issue for 2 weeks. So the demos this weekend, next coming weekend, will kind of depend on like what progress you've made. And you'll just want to kind of think through, as you're having these initial conversations, maybe setting some benchmarks for yourself along the way of, okay, by this weekend, this is what we want to accomplish. Again, because it can be easy to get overwhelmed by a larger project like this. And so breaking it up into smaller pieces of what you want to accomplish along the way. Each pair can have some kind of benchmarks, and you can have benchmarks for our halfway point this next coming weekend, and then our final demos. And it says in here somewhere, but you can write your own stories needed to complete the implementation. So for example, if there's a framework you want to implement, you can write your own ticket for that, write an issue. It should be pretty easy. If you go to issues here, you can just kind of click on new issue and just write it out. Follow the example you've seen in other issues if you're not sure exactly how to write it, but there are some really good examples in our issues of really clear descriptions and expectations setting there. Does anyone have any questions about kind of the logistics of how to approach this upcoming sprint? Cool. Anything while we've got some time together, anything else that y'all want to talk about before you get started with thinking through like the mood board and the different design elements of your app? Okay. What we can do then is we can end this call early. And if y'all, I don't know what your availability is, but if you want to start, like at least for the next 10 minutes, getting started on those mood boards and regrouping, I will start our threads in the Slack, but you can also like, I can keep the Zoom running if you want to just use it to chat. Let me stop the recording if I can. Oh, I have to stop sharing my screen. All right, I'm going to stop the recording.